All right. Welcome back to Career Path 101. Welcome from Enzo and welcome from Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
So, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit something about yourself. Where are you right now?
I'm in Greenville, South Carolina right now
Oh,
at home.
I am in Greenville, South Carolina as well. We can't meet because of COVID-19, but it's still very good to get to see you. I've known Elizabeth since 2013. Once again, she was one of my first class of students. We started college together, like I like to say.
Mhm.
I joined BJU in 2013, and Elizabeth started her Zoo and Wildlife degree in 2013 at Bob Jones University too. We have known each other so for 7 years now,
Mhm.
I believe. And she
Long time.
long time, relatively long time. And she graduated in 2017, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And I've known Elizabeth in a variety of contexts. She's taken a variety of labs and classes with me. And she also had the opportunity, I also had the opportunity to give her a little bit of guidance on a little experiment she was running at some point on the effect of aquatic plants on zebrafish. But I've known Elizabeth especially for her big passion about large animals. And Elizabeth was all about snakes, big cats, and she got some solid experience in the zoo and wildlife sector. She interned, she volunteered, and I was fully convinced that she would go toward that career path. But instead, a couple of years ago, she messaged me and she gave me really a striking news. And the news was that she had been hired to work as a chemist technician at a local company. And since then, she's done very well. And so I wanted to have Elizabeth here in our series because her career path is very unique. And actually, it's a demonstration that we are still work in progress and we are still in the process of learning what we are good at. And sometimes we can surprise ourselves. We may find ourselves inspired and actually very good at doing something that just a few years before we hated, maybe, or we simply didn't appreciate that much.
Yeah.
And I think some of you, maybe many of you can relate with Elizabeth's background. And she's been really a positive example of how you can stretch yourself outside of your comfort zone and actually excel. And so I'm going to have Elizabeth tell us a little bit more about what she's doing right now professionally, with a very brief summary of these two-step careers she's been involved with. So why don't you start with your first job as a chemical technician, and then you tell us how you progressed, how you have grown, and you tell us then what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So my first job was at a company called Pacific Industrial Development. And we made catalyst coatings there that we sold actually to the company that I currently work at. But I work in a different division at this current company. But yeah, I would just say, I guess the thing is that job really ended up being the job that I wanted for a long time. And I really enjoyed it. It's just that it took me a while to get it. I graduated in 2017, and I guess I started working at PIDC in the fall of 2018, like October. So I was really applying for jobs for over a year and working at a different job before I got the one that I would like. So I think it was just a work in progress, like you said, to get to the point where I am now. And I now am working with BASF, which is a worldwide chemical company with several divisions, but we basically make a lot of personal care products that are soap-based that you see in the store. So hand soap, face wash, shampoo, all that kind of stuff.
So let's go one step back. So can you explain a little bit what a catalyst coating is?
So the catalyst coating, I guess, is really something that they would put on they normally use like an active material and coat that and make like pellets or tablets out of the coating and then the base material. And it just increases the surface area that they have coated with actual catalyst that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about increasing the surface area that they can have for the catalyst, for whatever they're making out of. I didn't actually know what they were making at the company we were selling it to, but I knew how we were processing it. And we were basically making these small pellet tablets that we were selling to them.
So how did you get to, from your interest in zoo and wildlife, how did you get to apply for a position, a lab technician position in chemistry? How did you come up with that idea?
I guess once you graduate, you realize that I had a few internships, and some of them I liked more than I thought, and some of them I liked less than I thought. Originally, I thought that I would be going to veterinary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a veterinary internship in Texas when I was living there. And it ended up being something that I didn't like as much as I thought. There were different reasons for that, and I'm not going to go into it, but I did have an internship at a zoo, and I loved that. But when I graduated, I realized that maybe the pay wasn't quite what I was hoping for. And I guess this decision was more of a practical decision. And I think that's something that I would tell people that are looking to graduate is, if you don't want to go to graduate school right away, or if you're not really sure what you're going to do, try and do something practical. And I think one of the first things I noticed once I started looking on LinkedIn for actual jobs is that lab technician was a very common job. It's just the barrier to you is how much experience you have. So a lot of them wanted 2 to 5 years of experience, which I didn't have. But once you get that first job and you have experience and you have references that can vouch for you being a hard worker or a good worker or knowing what to do and all this kind of stuff, and knowing different lab instruments, being proficient in how to run them and how to troubleshoot them, then that really will bring you to the point where you can get that job. And I guess I would say that that's kind of what brought me to this job, is just that I still have a passion for animals. I still read articles, scientific articles about ecology and all that kind of stuff. That's very interesting to me still, but I think it's good to be practical with what you are looking for in a job, that you can have that kind of life that you would like. And graduate school, the cost sometimes can be prohibitive, and I think that it's good to take that into account as well when you're going.
So you had this transition, and I'm assuming even with your first industry job, there was a learning curve. Can you tell us a little bit more about the learning curve? What were the things, challenges, right? The main challenges that you had to overcome, and how much time it took you to figure things out, and possibly if there has been any experience during your undergrad which helped you, even if it was not structurally within the industry.
Mm-hmm. I think that the biggest learning curve is learning how to use the different instruments, because at my first job, we only ran a few tests, which was a little bit easier, but you still have to learn how to deal with the production when the test comes up out of specification. So part of that is talking to the chemical operator, and they typically know how to adjust it a little bit more. And just how much to adjust it is kind of up to you. And you give them those kind of instructions. At my current job, there are quite a few different instruments. We run quite a few different tests. So that's a huge learning curve. And I think the main thing is knowing, first of all, how to fix your instrument, because sometimes you'll get an out of specification result, and it's really just based on you having your instrument not calibrated correctly, or the solution was made incorrectly, maybe not by you, maybe by others, or maybe by you. To check those things and make sure that you've done all those things correctly before you give them an adjustment to the production batch, because the last thing you want to do is add some type of raw material or something like that because you think that a product is out of specification, when in reality you ran the test wrong, or maybe the instrument is just having a little glitch, which happens quite frequently. So that's part of the thing, is learning how to fix it. A lot of them have computer systems that command the instrument, and knowing how to use their software and stuff like that. That's a huge learning curve.
Before we go to the second part of my question, very quickly. So what are some of the instruments and technologies you are mastering now?
I would say one of the main things we use is a Metronome auto titrator. So I know in our lab we use those kind of manual glass burettes. And instead of doing that, we basically have solutions that are dosed by an auto titrator. We use that a lot because we run a lot of pH adjustments when we need to adjust pH. We also use GC, HPLC. I did ICP at my previous job. And then we have different instruments that run like specific gravity, viscosity, and density. And then we have particle size analysis. There's a lot, but it's just kind of, that's some of what we do. We mostly do a lot of titrations. So I'll tell you that. It's a lot of wet chemistry.
Right, right. So what are some of the skills that you started to develop or fully developed in undergrad that you find are transferable even to an industry position like the ones you are holding right now?
I think it's really important to learn how to communicate with different types of people. I think it's a little different in college. Everyone's around the same age. Everyone has about the same background and stuff like that. And, you know, we will have a college degree in chemistry. My coworkers have chemistry. I have biology. There's different ones, but it's all kind of in the sciences. And then you have to talk to a chemical operator and explain to them why you're making adjustments. You need to make sure that you can give them a clear kind of defense for why you're doing it, because a lot of them have a lot more, and you really have to be able to tell them clearly why they should make an adjustment, because it is extra work for them and you want to make sure that it is a legitimate addition that they need to make. So I think being able to communicate with them, maybe in a little bit more simple terms, you know, they understand obviously what's going on, but not down to the chemistry. You don't need to get down that far, and being able to kind of bring it back and tell them a good reason why you're making an addition. So I think that's really important. I think learning to be efficient and manage your time, which is obviously something that we learned in college and in our college labs, that you not only when something goes wrong, you just see that it goes wrong, you know, that's kind of like the starting point, but why does it go wrong and how can you prevent it the next time? Because that's going to save you so much time and effort and so much, you know, tears and being upset and all that kind of stuff in the lab. You know, when things go wrong, it can be very upsetting and it really does set you back, especially some of our tests take like 2+ hours. So when one of those tests goes wrong, why did it go wrong? Why, how can I keep it from going wrong the next time and save me another 2 hours of running the test again and all that kind of thing? Because the production, you know, some things, you really can't leave them at certain steps without something going seriously wrong. Certain products that we have, they have a color specification. And so if you leave them on heat for too long, waiting on a test or a test has failed, the color can go to a specification and can actually get burned. So those are all kind of things that you learn, but I think those are two really important things to know that I learned in college for sure.
Right.
So.
It's very good to hear that, because on one side, you're highlighting the importance of having some skills, technical skills. And you share with us the learning curve that you have to go through to acquire competency, okay, dexterity with all this analytical chemist technology. But then on the other side, it seems to me that's just as important to develop what we like to call the soft skills, communication skills. The ability to connect, maybe even at a human level, okay, with your co-workers, critical thinking and troubleshooting, the ability to listen when somebody from a different background explains what he's seeing and translating at the same time in your brain in what they can mean from a program manager perspective. So it's really interesting to see how even in a straightforward technical career like the one you are pursuing, there we go. The soft skills are very, very important. Do you have any other anecdote or any other comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think it's really important when you work in this kind of position. I know it's different in pharmaceutical labs if you're a lab technician there, but for us, there's one of us per shift, and we have, between 5 and 7 chemical operators that we have to do tests for, and different types of chemistry in each building. And I think it's important for you to realize that even though you have a college degree, these chemical operators having 30 years of experience is almost even more important. I wouldn't say it's necessarily more important like in a lab tech position, but it's very important for you to listen to what they're saying, because they have seen these problems way more than me. I've only been there a year. And I think it's really important for you to, I don't know if it's part of the humility aspect of things, but to really make sure that people have more experience, whether or not they have a college degree, it's kind of irrelevant at that point, because they have seen so much and they've made thousands and thousands of batches of these same products. Mm-hmm. They know exactly what's going on. But I think it is important, listen to them. If you think that they're right, maybe you can come to a compromise. And a lot of times, if you can't, then you need to stand up for yourself and be able to say, no, I think that this is really right. I really do think that this is what we should do, and be able to kind of put your foot down when you have to, but also listen. Those are 2 important things that are both going to, help you get along with your coworkers and be able to, I think, make the right decisions without making people upset. So.
Right. So how important are those group projects?
Yes.
With them, there is a reason why. Now, given what you said, it made me think, so if hypothetically, you would be able to go back to college, go back 7 years, right? Start over again. What are some of the things that you would do different? And at the same time, what are some of the suggestions that you have for somebody who started in college right now, is watching your interview here and is saying, oh, I love what she does, I want to do it, I just want to start with the right foot. So either you go back 7 years, or somebody, a freshman that's talking to you right now, what would you change? What would you do to be better prepared to jump full force in your type of career?
I think there's probably 2 things that I can really think of that were important. One of them is I would definitely go more towards the chemistry side and try and focus on that. That's a very broad career that you can go into. It's important in every industry. I probably would have taken organic chemistry. I didn't take it. That would have helped me, although I did learn a lot of that, believe it or not, on the job, because a lot of what we do esterification and alkoxylation chemistries, and those 2 types of chemistries, especially esterification, is an organic type of chemistry. We use a lot of C-chain fatty acids and fatty alcohols in our production, and so I learned a lot of that on the job. But I would have focused more on that, because I think, I did enjoy my zoology classes and my plant physiology class, of course, with you, so much that it was kind of like chemistry was on the back burner. I liked it, but I wasn't really focused on it. And the other classes, took priority in my mind. So maybe going back, I would do a little bit more work in those classes and take organic chemistry. I think the other thing that I would say is, if you already know as a student, whether you're a freshman or a senior, that you either want to delay going to graduate school or you don't want to go to graduate school. I think the first thing that you should do is, throughout your career in college, looking on LinkedIn to see what job opportunities there are for you, and making sure that you take the classes, because a lot of them list the semester hours that they want. They want a certain semester hours number in physics or chemistry or biology or whatever you're looking at. Make sure that you meet those requirements that most of the jobs list, and then try and get the type of experience that they want, whether that's an internship or, maybe working in the lab at Bob Jones or all that kind of thing. You need to make sure that you are setting yourself up for the most success that you can by looking at those job opportunities and making sure that you do everything in your power while you're in college paying for it, that you should make sure that you get your money's worth to where you can get the job that you would like when you graduate.
Right. So first, takeaway, you need to have a LinkedIn account, right? That's very important.
Yes,
when you're looking at these things, right? And then I'm pretty sure Dr. Robert Lee will be very happy to hear your comments about organic chemistry.
Yes, I'm sure he would.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna watch the video. So,
Mhm.
but at the same time, this is reality in life for everybody. During different stages of life, our priorities may be different. And so
Mhm.
in the past, you find yourself more inspired by certain things, but there we go. As you get engaged in a different reality, in a different context, there we go. Your interest for these other disciplines that were on the back burner, as you said, just to utilize your terminology, they come forward. And since you are actually applying them on a daily basis, it
Mhm.
makes more sense to you.
Yes,
You find the
exactly.
drive to learn and self learn. So I'm very glad that you are, catching up and closing the gap. So how hard was for you to make a full transition? I mean, right now I would say that you have made a full transition
Mhm.
to this new type of career. How hard was it for you, given your background?
I mean, it was kind of hard. I definitely, when I graduated, the first kind of job that I applied for was like a forest ranger position or something like that, something with the US government where I could maybe do research. And I did get a job offer like that in Michigan. And I guess it was just kind of hard for me to accept. Yeah, Michigan. It was hard for me to accept mainly because of the pay and then because it wasn't a permanent position. It was like a 6 month, and then kind of end date type position, which still would have given you good experience. But I would say that it's a little bit better if you can get a position that's more long term, where you can learn continuously and have the same coworkers. I do think it's good to always be looking for the next position that you would like and learning what you think you would need for that position. But I do think if you're hopping around too much, it's not quite as valuable as staying with someone that you can have a relationship with, especially your supervisor who's going to be there for you, to give you references and stuff like that. That's very important to have those kind of relationships that are more permanent, that you can keep up with them and stuff. So I guess I would say, yeah, the transition, it wasn't easy. And it's quite hard to be applying for jobs for over a year and just waiting, to hear back from someone, because I applied for quite a few jobs. And the first interview I got was PIDC, and I did get it. I feel like if you get the interview, you're kind of one foot in the door. You just have to make sure that you present yourself very well, and that even if you don't meet all of the qualifications, you got the interview, right? So whatever experience you have, try and match it to the job description and think of the questions that they're going to ask you. Maybe you don't have 2 years of lab experience, but maybe you have experience in group projects. Bring that up. Maybe you have experience working as a manager even at a retail store, and you have some anecdotal story or something like that that you can share that will show that you have leadership potential, or that you can work with other people well, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's still really important. So,
Yeah, very precious suggestion. If you don't mind, how many applications have you filed? Is it in the hundreds, in the thousands of job applications
how
before?
many? I would. It's definitely in the hundreds. Yeah, I would probably say that every week I was trying to do one at least per week for
Uh-huh.
like a year, and I did more than one on a lot of weeks. So it's just a long process. And like I said, that first job
Mhm.
is the main thing that you want to focus on. And I think for me, it was a lot of putting aside maybe my preconceived notions of like, oh, my first job's going to be perfect, or it's going to be like the perfect pay, it's going to be the perfect hours, or whatever you think. I don't know if I was the only one that had that kind of idea, but it's kind of hard for you to let that go and just think, okay, I just need to get my first position. I need to get those references. I need to have the background of like, she works hard, she knows these instruments, she does this, all that kind of stuff, to get you to the position that you really want, right? And I think that's where I'm going, is just that it's a continual getting to better and better positions to where you get maybe your dream job in 5 years, right? That can be your goal. If it's not graduate school, is in 5 years, I want to have X position, I want to be making this amount of money. But your first job, you will probably need to make compromises and just take what you can get. So.
Right. Well, believe it or not, your applications, the number of your applications, it's encouraging. And
Yes.
it speaks about consistency, but it also speaks about you learning how to approach your own professional development. It's a process, as you said, and it's good to see this growth mindset. Okay, I'm gonna be willing to compromise a little bit because I know what my ending goal is. And right now, I take this opportunity because it gives me the chance to structure my background in these areas. And then the next job is gonna add something else. And you work progressively. Now, along with that, can you tell us how you transitioned from your first company to BASF? And then also if that played into that kind of progression. So can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with your supervisors?
Yeah, I think that having a good relationship with your supervisors is really important. I know at my current company, they do yearly reviews, and believe it or not, you know, whether you get a raise, whether you get a bonus, and all that kind of stuff is based on your yearly review. So I think that it's really important, you know, to have, I would say, you know, you always want to keep it professional, but to have a little bit more of a personal relationship with them, whatever that looks like for you, maybe just every couple days, you know, if you don't see him, because his office is like far away from the lab kind of, and he is in there doing a lot of like paperwork and computer work and phone calls and all that kind of more management level stuff. Just going and talking to him about issues that you have had in the lab. And a lot of times, you know, once you develop the kind of rapport that you have with your boss, where you've been talking to him and are very honest with him on what's going on in the lab, you know, being honest with the mistakes that you've made, being honest with where you have also failed, not just, oh, you know, I did this, which I think is really easy to do. It's like, hey, I, you know, did this thing. It's like, that's great. But, you know, when you've made a mistake, I think that people respect you a lot more when you're able to go and just say, there's really no excuse. This was just a mistake that I made. And that's going to give you a lot of, you know, good rapport with your boss. And then in return, what you get is that they'll be honest with you and ask you questions and ask for your opinion. I think that it's kind of a two-way street. If you want respect from your boss, you need to respect them and you need to be honest with them and have that kind of relationship where you can speak to them about anything. So I guess that's part of what I like to try and do. I don't know if I've been successful. I like to think I'm a little successful in that, but
I think so too. So what are some of the challenges somebody who wants to get into that type of career would expect to face?
some of the challenges, I guess, would be the fast pace of it. So especially where I'm at with a chemical company, like I said, it's very different in pharmaceuticals or maybe in a medical lab in a hospital. But for us, there is one of us per shift, so you're on your own. So it gives you a lot of decision-making skills, and it's not a decision making where necessarily you always have to ask your boss. You know, if it's serious enough, we always ask them and we give them a call or whatever. But a lot of it is you being able to make decisions yourself and stick with them and making sure that the decisions you make are logical and that you can back them up and defend them. Because if you make the wrong addition to, say, a batch of material, which at my company can be up to 60,000 kgs, which is a lot of money for the company. If you make an add to that that is incorrect and it's something that you can't go back and you've ruined the material, you want to be able to defend yourself. So there is a little bit of, you know, nervousness that goes into it. You want to be very careful, like I said, and make sure that your test is done correctly before you make that kind of add that can potentially, you know, ruin the batch if you make it wrong. So maybe learning to be conservative on your ads, checking your math, because, you know, you have to do obviously calculations on how to make the ad depending on how big the batch is and all that kind of stuff. And then making sure you talk to the operators. And one of the things that we do a lot too, in our lab at least, is going back and looking at previous batches paperwork so we can see that, you know, with this material, we've made these kinds of ads before. So you can kind of see, okay, well, if my ad seems like twice the amount of what they normally do, I probably did my math wrong, right? So stuff like that. I think just being able to, like I said, stand up for yourself and make decisions being able to manage your relationships with the chemical operators that you have to talk to, communicating with them, and making sure that they know what they're supposed to do and that you know what you're supposed to do. Those are all very important things, but I think it's challenging because it's very fast paced.
Right.
You know, we get samples, say I have, 12-hour shifts or 10-hour shifts or whatever you have. You maybe will have 2-3 hours where you get 0 samples and you're just kind of like, all right, I'll make some solutions or I'll standardize whatever, do kind of like some preventative maintenance on the instruments and stuff like that. And then for the next 5 hours, you have sample after sample after sample after sample that has like every sample has 3 tests and every sample needs an adjustment or whatever. And you're kind of busy for a long period of time and then slow, and knowing how to set yourself up for success in those slow times so that when the fast time comes, you're not like all of a sudden out of solution or all of a sudden, oh, your standardization on your auto titrator expired, right? Because that's the worst thing you could do, is to kind of sit around and think that nothing bad's going to happen. And then all of a sudden you get a bunch of samples and you're not prepared. So to make use of those slow times and, learning new things when I was new, reading procedures and stuff like that, that's always helpful.
So a message for you guys who are following us: just be very thankful for those teachers, for those lab teachers that are pushy and make you feel miserable because they push you to work faster and faster and faster, right? Just incidentally. So how would you say your education at BJ prepared you for what you're doing right now?
I think that the labs helped so much. Just seeing, especially when you see experiments fail, like I said, you would not believe that that's the main part of my job, is seeing your tests fail and knowing how to make adjustments, knowing what went wrong or what potentially went wrong, kind of having the test and knowing what's going on in the reaction that you're running. I think that's kind of when we had those lab manuals, or we had the handouts where it kind of, all of the background, at sometimes it seemed like irrelevant, like I have to read 5 pages and the experiment's only an hour long or something, but all of the background gives you reasons why your test would fail, right? So knowing, this is the first or most common thing that would cause it to fail. Like this is the second, this is the third. Then maybe the fourth is you check your instrument or whatever. Knowing that kind of stuff and learning it in the lab and seeing your experiments fail and learning that that's just kind of life. You're going to have to do it over. There's really nothing else you can do. You have to do it over, and you have to figure out what went wrong and why. So that was really important. And then I think, knowing the background again of the chemistry that I'm doing, I think that it's very similar to when you guys ask us essay questions in class on our tests and stuff like that, because you really have to start from zero. There's no multiple choice really when you're working in a lab. It's all, okay, explain exactly what happened, exactly why from this question, right? It's very different from you being able to maybe select like the right answer from a group of questions where one is really obviously the right answer. Sometimes it's kind of like that. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it's not very common. It's a lot of times more like an essay question where you have to figure out the problem, almost like a mathematical, equation where you have to find X and you have to start from zero and find it. Like, what is going wrong and what exactly do I need to do? And I have to go through the entire thing. So I think that those questions were really challenging for me, and I know I hated them, but that was a really good learning experience for me. So
good. Now, the final piece of advice: hypothetical scenario. Some of the people that are, one of the person that's watching this video had no idea what it meant to work in industry in the type of position you have right now. And now, after following you for the past 30 minutes or so, this person absolutely want to do your job, want to do your work. So what's your piece of advice for somebody that had no idea what you're doing and now is absolutely in love with your career path?
I would say that go ahead and do it. It's really fun. Part of the reason I really like my job is because I work by myself. I know that sounds really stupid, but it is kind of fun just working in the lab by yourself. It's very relaxed, you know, you do have to get your work done, but it is more relaxed in that, you know, there's not a very strict dress code like in an office. There's not a lot of people always coming and talking to you. It's kind of just very relaxed. That's really the only word that I can say. It can get stressful, but I think it's really great. And I think one of the first things, like I said, is to look on LinkedIn and see some jobs that you're interested in. Look at the companies, look at their background, and if they offer internships, great. I think you should definitely apply for an internship and see if you can get it just to get some background. If they don't offer an internship, look at the job postings that they have. And like I said, make sure that whatever classes you take line exactly up with what they're looking for, because almost every single one I see lists the semester hours, and I don't think that's like a have to have, because I've gotten hired for jobs where I didn't match exactly the semester hours that they want in every subject, because experience is so important. But if you have no experience, it will look better if you have every single subject at least a few semester hours in each one that they ask. If you can't add up to the total, at least have some in each one, and then try and work towards the experience that they're asking for. The other thing I would say is on LinkedIn, honestly, just add everyone, especially people that you know are in a similar position or in a similar industry, you know, whether they're a chemist or something like that. I add people from other BASF plants that I think maybe that's kind of weird. I know if it was on Facebook, it would be kind of weird, but on LinkedIn, those people, they'll probably accept your invitation, and then you never know, you might end up moving to a different state or somehow looking for a different position. And then, you know, someone, you can message them like, hey, at your plant, are there any openings? You know, we've been on LinkedIn, you can like the things they share, you can share things and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important for you to start building that network and having some references, especially your professors are always a good reference. I know I've put Dr. A down for some, and definitely then building your professional references as well. And if you have no experience, I don't see a reason why you can't put down a manager at a retail job. I know people think that maybe they shouldn't take that as seriously and as a real job, but I think it's still really important for you to show up on time to those kind of jobs that you think don't matter, because those people are still very valuable references. You know, it's maybe not a real job or whatever you want to call it, but you made money there, you showed up on time, they can vouch for the fact that you worked hard. It has nothing to do with your major, but they will still be a very valuable asset to you when you are looking for any kind of job. If you don't take those kind of jobs seriously and they ask for a reference and he's like, he showed up late, he this, all that kind of stuff, that's going to look really bad on you, because if you don't take seriously these small things and these small jobs that you have, why would they expect you to take seriously a real professional job? And why would they pay you even more? They can't even vouch for you being able to show up on time and all that kind of stuff. So don't underestimate those kind of things being very important and influential in your job search for your whatever dream job it is, including lab tech maybe. So.
Well, as you were talking, as you were sharing throughout the conversation here we are having, there are two ideas that keep coming back. One, strategic thinking. Think, plan, act. And the other one, work ethics. And they're just equally important. Just a random question here. I promise none of your supervisors BASF is gonna. So are you planning to go back to grad school at some point?
I've thought about it, and I think I haven't completely, scratched that out as a possibility. I think one thing that you can always say is if you're not sure, definitely look for this kind of position like I'm in, because the only thing I see it being is an advantage to you. Because first of all, now you've been in industry, and now I know exactly what positions are open, especially in my current company, but just the opportunities that are in the chemical industry. I know what jobs there are, and I know what kind of qualifications they want. So that way, if I'm going back to graduate school, I can be sure that if I'm on this track, I know which job I can get. And I guess the other thing is just to always be planning for that. If you're going to go to graduate school, to always make sure that you know the job opportunities that are out there. So that's kind of what I've been looking at is if I went back, I would probably go for like a master's in chemistry or maybe even an undergrad in chemical engineering. There's a lot of opportunities in engineering as well, but chemistry, you know, a lot of times to get a more research and development position, you do need a master's or a PhD. And there are a lot of those too, if you really would prefer not to be involved in the production end of things, which can be a lot more stressful. If you just want to do research, I think that's a great thing. But I would say that if you're not sure, go ahead and get your experience, because I think, like I said, it can only benefit you on a graduate school application that you've already had real industry work experience, and that you kind of know already a little bit of what's going on. And then I think it'll help you if you want to get a TA position or any kind of like research assistant position, because you already know a lot of the instruments, and you've already worked on troubleshooting them. So you're already a step ahead of everyone else who maybe just came out of college and maybe their lab doesn't have those instruments or they didn't know anything about them on their undergrad. You already know all about that and you can talk about it and you can show that you're about. But yeah, graduate school, maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, there is another aspect that you want to consider, as well as other people who are in your type of career. Many times, very often, big companies like the one you work for actually sponsor the employees for getting a degree. It's part of the professional development that they want to foster. And so they end up paying 80% or more of your cost while you're still working full-time or flexible schedule. So that's another added value, if you wish, other advantage of starting with the industry sector before going to grad school. Now, Elizabeth, I know we have been talking so much about chemistry, analytical chemistry, and you love it. It's apparent. It's very clear. And if I didn't know you, I would actually doubt that you actually like animals. Do you have a proof
really?
that actually shows us that you actually are into zoo and wildlife?
Yes, I do have proof. I have a photo I can show you guys. And let's see. We'll share this picture of me.
What is
the
that?
Snake.
Is that your house?
It's a reticulated python.
Okay.
I think if you ask Dr. Carmichael, he probably still has them.
All right.
He's one of the friendly ones. So that was me in college helping Dr. Carmichael with some of the snakes and stuff.
Right. Well, it is clear you are enjoying the experience.
Yes. I do have a cat too, but he's kind of distracting. So I decided I would put him in the other room for this video because he likes to crawl on my computer.
Did you say a cat?
A cat, yeah.
What kind of cat? A tiger, a lion, a cheetah? What kind of?
A house cat.
Right.
A black and white cat.
All right. You can let it if you want. We can say hi to him.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. It was very good. It was very good, Elizabeth. I think compared to the other interviews we have been having so far, you have provided a very meaningful witness of what it looks like to work in a different sector. And it's really an open-ended opportunity. It's really, it can be a starting point for a bright career in industry, as well as a starting point to go back to grad school. Or if you get tired, you can just, with your background and your good credential and your work ethic, you can totally change career. And it's just great to see how well you have adapted and how flexible you have been, professionally speaking, to jump from one side to the other. So it's just encouraging to see how you have been growing over the past years. So I thank you very much for this past 50 minutes or so we have been chatting. And I look forward to hear for your next steps and your next promotion. And another thing that you guys can enjoy if you go into the industry career is to get some experience internationally. Those big corporations have sites all over the world. And that can be another thing, another side of the package you want to consider. So Elizabeth, I thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.
Thank you.
Yep.